Greetings, chess friends. Today, a little bit of a different video. We're going to look and talk about composed chess puzzles. Just a word about that. What is a composed puzzle, or you might hear it called a study? Exactly as the title says, these are puzzles that were composed for the purpose of really aesthetic value, beautiful, logical, and amazing. Usually you can tell they don't quite look like the natural characteristics of a chess position, but they are intended to work certain muscles, so to speak, and build your creativity and vision of the chessboard. Let's jump into some, and today's studies are all composed by Richard Reti. We did a video on him just recently, and of course, this may be the most famous chess study of all time. A composed puzzle. The puzzle is white to move and draw, and seemingly a miracle. We can never catch this pawn, which is going down from behind, and black is right here ready to catch our pawn very easily. So how on earth could white survive this one? Well, you might imagine that pawn c7 is not even an option. They can just take it. Again, we're not close to catching this one. The beauty of this one and the real simplicity that is encapsulated is that white needs to control the center. King g7 is the winning move. By coming towards the center, you will simultaneously be able to save your own pawn or stop black's pawn, one or the other, based on black's responses. King b6. Black has really two options. King goes and takes the pawn, or this pawn starts running. We'll look at both. King b6, again, tracking right to the center. King f6. If king takes pawn, that's pretty easy. We go take their pawn. If h4 and black continues on, we also continue on to the center. Essentially, by getting to the center, you are controlling both sides or able to reach both sides of the board. Again here, king takes c6. We can play king f4, and we're catching this pawn very easily. Let's rewind. If h3, here, a little difference, king d6. h2, c7, h1 queen, c8 queen, and although it is black to move, this is a draw. Barring any huge blunders, this should be a relatively simple draw. No matter what black does, we are able to stop the pawn, even if they make a run for it as fast as they can. King f6, let's say h3, king e6, and now we are able to save this pawn. h2, black is going just right for it. Here, c7. If they queen, we queen. If king b7, king d7. And again, queen versus queen, just a draw. So a very interesting one. White, seemingly in a lost position, no way to catch this pawn and save our own, is able to do it. A true miracle of the geometry of chess. Beautiful. This was a very similar puzzle, also composed by Reti. And this one, with, like I said, a similar theme, is king g6, king b6, king takes g7. In every puzzle, you really will need to try to identify the factors, the observations, what's the point. And this one, we'll need to round up these pawns as our pawn is doomed. Here, a couple different variations. h5, king takes pawn, h4, and king e5. Very similar to the last one. In fact, identical in some variations. And if you take, we are able to catch this one. These two puzzles are kind of related, of course, now you can see. Had they gone f5, this one actually slightly different. In fact, we don't take the pawn, but king f6, keeping within striking distance of this pawn. If f4, king e5, and f3, we go king d6, switching gears, and we are able to save our own pawn. Of course, if they take, we take. This is a draw, as it's a rook pawn that we're able to collect. Back to this moment here, let's pretend instead that they had played h5 right away. And here again, not taking this pawn is critical, but taking the g pawn. We are able to get back. h4, this seems so far, but king takes and king e5. Again, saving the day. If they take, we are able to catch. And if h3, king d6. A real chess miracle here. Our eyes just don't even believe it from the opening position, starting like this. King takes g7, h5, And this would be what I guess is the main line, king f4. Really cool concepts by Reti. Even in the end game, control the center. So let's take a look at a different one. Again, let's try to wrap our head around what's going on first. Very strange situation you wouldn't see in a normal chess game. 3 pawns on the second rank. But here the crux is that we can't take this pawn. We just can't take it as they promote this one. So we need to start finding solutions, and we need to do it fast because their king is coming to save these pawns. The first human thought is probably king takes g2. But this is actually not a good choice. King e4, king f2, and you might think king d3, king e1, I've got them. I froze all the pawns, we're able to take one on the next move, and white is winning. However, there is a resource here that was overlooked, and that is the move e1 queen. A brilliant move. If king takes, know your endgames, king d3, this is a draw. This is a draw, surprisingly or not. Of course, if your king moves away, king d2. If rook a1, king c3, any other rook move runs into king d3 repeating. There's no value in making any of these checks as our king can attack the rook. And black is actually winning now. So an incredible turn of events with e1 queen. Easy to miss this surprising move, e1 queen. I should mention after e1 queen, rook takes, also king d3, followed by king d2 most likely, and this is again a draw. Let's rewind to the beginning. So you cannot just take this pawn. It's actually harder than it looks. You cannot take this pawn. So the move king f2 actually does lend itself now. King e4, king takes e2. Okay, so far so good. We took one of the pawns, and we're still guarding both of these from promotion. Our king is at opposition and holding them off. What's the problem here? King d4, again, you cannot take this. And notice your king cannot go take this one, as the same problem we just saw. Black's king enters. So what to do? A waiting move is needed. If you had played king d2, still good here. Waiting move, though. King e4. Rook e1. This sets up an important idea, staring at the king. Had you just played king d2, again, the same problem, except on this side, king f3. And this is just a mirror image of the same problem we saw earlier. So that is really it. Rook e1, though, sets up a nice idea. If the king just moves, that's easy enough. We can just go take the pawn now. We're just taking it. And the other pawn is guarded by the rook. But black has another alternative, and that is interesting move king e5, keeping square in line. But then white answers with another move king e3. And from here now it is for sure that we're going to be able to collect one of these pawns. If you move, we can just go take it. Notice the king isn't able to invade now that it's backed up so much. Whereas the same problem here, the king was able to invade either way. So kind of a cool puzzle, a little bit of a tricky one there, but king f2 was the answer, and we are able to hold off the king there. An interesting solution. Final one here, and again, what is the crux? What's the problem? What's going on here? Well, these pawns are coming fast. They're coming this way and this way. Our knight is out of place. Knight and bishop notoriously don't coordinate too well. Think of the knight and bishop mate is so difficult. First question, c2 is a real problem. That's a problem. We need to stop this pawn. If you just make a move, let's say a knight move, the move c2, let's say king d2 and king b2. This pawn is queening. So that tells us, by process of elimination, that we need to act fast. If you try to just say, move the bishop, and on c2, answer with a move like bishop a4, that's going to become a theme in some of the variations. Black has a nice move, e4. And this move really disrupts things. Again, if king takes, we just push. If king e2, keeping an eye on this pawn, black has f3. And nice in-between move here, c2. If king d2, king b2 wins, so you must only play bishop a4. King d2, but this is actually all winning for black here. G takes, either pawn captures, and we have a winning advantage here. The knight must stare only at this square and bounce back and forth. Meanwhile, our king is just going to slowly make its way in here. and threaten the knight. This is a winning game for black. Okay, so that all stemmed from bishop to b5 on the first move. What to do if not that? Well, Reti had a wonderful solution for this puzzle. Knight g3. Elegant, as it does solve the problem of our knight, if they don't take us, because our knight can get back in the game now. For example, c2 is no matter a move like knight e2 now. Our knight is participating, and that's enough. So what to do? Of course, black, we have to ask capture. This setup of the pawns also has slowed those pawns down. Remember the variations with f3, those pawns were very scary. Now, not so much. Bishop to b5. Again, if you go the other direction, your bishop loses touch, and the pawn is going to promote. e4 check. A nice distraction, but we just avoid that. Should black go c2 immediately, again, king d2 loses to king b2, but bishop a4 is absolutely necessary. King takes, and now this game is a draw. King c5, king e4, king d6, and a few ways to do this. Just don't go king f5, as you are now losing to king d5. But king e3, and some work is still needed, but this is technically a draw, despite us being 2 pawns behind. Okay, let's rewind. e4. We don't capture it, but king e2, keeping an eye on this pawn again. c2, bishop a4, capture. King d2, king b3, king c1. And here is where the real twist ending comes in, because white has worked their way into a stalemate. If king c3 occurs, stalemate, game is over. If you push the pawn, stalemate, game is over. If you move your king away, avoiding the stalemate, now we can capture. e3, king d1, king d3, king e2, and again, white survives. If you play e2, stalemate. If you move your king, we can keep the opposition. And again, there's no inroads here. The double pawn's just too clumsy, nowhere to go around this way. White holds on. An incredible composition, again, starting with knight g3, where white survives. White was really in some danger in this one, despite having the 2 extra minor pieces. So I would say a fun genre of the chess culture is this compositions, helping you really to calculate accurately, expand your vision or your candidate moves, what you're looking for, come up with some creative ideas, look at your opponent's resources. All of these things are benefited and worked when you are solving studies. So highly recommend. They're definitely fun, and there's some pretty sensational things going on when you are allowed to compose them. So things you won't see in a normal game. So hope that was fun. All of these, again, from Richard Reti, great player, great composer. And if you all like this, we might do a few more composed puzzle type videos. Thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.